understand of the speeches that happened at that time that there was a question as to honouring, as to whether or not it would be honoured. And certainly that is the view of my iwi, even though the government, 173 years, has been outrageously ignoring aspects of the treaty. We still continue to persevere in the relationship and say to them, we have been a good treaty partner, and we have fulfilled, aspects of what we agreed to in the treaty. You haven't, but we're going to persevere in our relationship with you because of the agreement that our ancestors made to help you do that. So I think really, I don't know if this is a Māori notion of enforcement, but certainly it's still trying to ensure that the treaty is upheld. That is what we're doing. We're persevering in our relationship with them. Be that we need to educate them as to how they can fulfill it, as one of the many ways of trying to get that to happen. Does it answer?
I don't know, this is a question, but just, reflectively, what could we have done? Well, we could have put them on a boat home, that's what we could have done. And I'm serious. When they were only 2,000 and we were still in the population here, we should have put them on a boat home. Having said that, our people, as with First Nations, Native American, Indigenous people around the world, we're an incredibly generous and honouring people. And so we fed them and we cared for them, as guests on our land, without a view that a population overrun would occur and a dishonouring would occur. And so I think that from as early as 1845, when Honihiki decided that he could see that 5 years after the signing of the treaty that the population was growing and they were massing guns and war was about to break out and land was beginning to be bought in Europe without anyone even being on our land, packaged and sold. And he chopped down the first symbol that he understood to symbolise colonialism, which was the flag, the British flag. And he chopped it down on a number of occasions as an act of resistance until such time they had to try and hunt him down. And a whole range of resistance activities, I think, have happened in the 173 years since the signing of the treaty. And I think, in terms of our people, we continue to honour the words that our ancestors agreed to on that day, and we will honour them forever. One of the issues we're now facing is a fundamental belief that once you have a treaty settlement, it goes away. That all of a sudden it becomes null and void again once you sign a few contracts and give a bit of land back. And there needs to be a greater realisation in our country that a treaty is a treaty forever. It doesn't come to an end because our government says we'll be signing off with all the tribes by 2014. So just continuing that through the generations, I think, is a critical element, and that the population, as the population issue occurred here in terms of decimation of many people, of a high percentage of our people, and the increased influx of many of colonial settlers to our lands, immediately imbalance their ability to ensure an enforcement of that. But we're yet to see what the next generations will do.
Last two questions. Oh, last two questions so far.
Kia ora. My name is Zoltan Grossman. I'm on the faculty, and with Christina Ackley a couple of years ago brought our class Native Decolonization in the Pacific Rim to Waitangi. We were there 2 years ago today. 4 of the students are here today, and we hope that they continue to be a connection between Washington and Aotearoa. And one of the premises of our class was that these aren't only Indian treaties, indigenous treaties, these are international treaties. And that it's the responsibility of non-native people too, as well, to see that they're implemented, that they're respected, and that we can't absolve ourselves of that responsibility and simply put it off on other people. I think we've also seen in this country how treaty rights have gotten in the way of mining projects in a number of states, and that some non-native people have come to see that treaty rights is a way to protect the resources, the land, the water for everybody. I'm wondering if there has been some understanding among at least some Pakeha in Aotearoa coming to that realization, or is it simply a matter of them not understanding that treaty rights are actually perhaps good for their own interest in the long run?
Yes, there has been. And I think that's one of the powers of I don't know more in the movement. And irrespective of the phrasing of the word, because I know a lot of our people say, well, never been idle, we've always been active. And so that, but actually that's not the context by which the term grew. And my understanding is it grew from a need to develop a response initially to the omnibus and to the environmental issue, and there being very little response occurring at the time. So I think that is one of the things of the movement, because when you, one of the things that we see in that movement, both across Great Turtle Islands, borders are just constructions, but is the call for all people to engage in this process, because this is about the future of all people on our lands. So I think that has become more and more clear, not just through this movement, but generally for our people. I think when people have seen that because of the tribe taking a very clear position around Petrobras, which is a massive, they're a massive corporation, multinational drilling corporation, to take that position very clearly and very strongly and win so far. It's really woken up a whole community beyond just the Māori community. So I think there's that. And actually understanding that at home, probably the thing between us and a total destruction of our land is the treaty. That's what stands between an ability for a total corporate destruction. I think people are coming to see that more and more. And we are asserting that more and more as a process, which is why, in terms of the collaboration with non-Indigenous environmental groups and social justice groups alongside the movements in terms of environmental well-being and those types of movements, is that those organisations like Greenpeace, for example, but others, also need to understand that they need to stand with the treaties, not just with the bit of environment discourse that they like. It is an entire movement in terms of a treaty movement. So we have growing allies in relationship to the treaty, and we had allies in 1840 as well. We've had allies all the way through, so the voice is growing. But it's growing in the context of having to deal with a whole range of other discourse that is about demeaning that relationship at the same time, and demeaning our roles as Indigenous people. So it's a great thing, and I think it will continue to grow as more of the environmental, particularly in terms of what was being said earlier around the toxins and all those issues in our lands, as they grow and people come to see that actually we can block that through an assertion of our Indigenous rights. We can block that activity, but they have to support us in it. And things like the Keystone, all the issues that are happening here are really vital to us, because all these corporates are the corporates that want to come and drill in our land. So we have a really strong investment as an Indigenous people a long way from here.